Welcome to the Badges and Banter podcast, your number one source for insights, discussions, and debates in the public safety industry, with your hosts, Jeff Halstead and Ken Kemna.
Well, welcome to another episode of Badges and Banter. My name is Jeff Halstead, retired chief out of Fort Worth, Texas, and I have the pleasure, as always, with my co-host. Welcome, Ken.
Good afternoon, Chief. How you doing?
It's a great day, and you have a great guest for us today, and we're going to have a good conversation, so fill us in on it.
I do indeed. We have the good fortune of having Chief Sam Greif with us today, and I will refer to him as Chief because that's the way I do. Chief Greif is currently the Deputy City Manager for the City of Plano, Texas. Do I have that correct, Chief?
That is correct.
Former fire chief for the city of Plano and formerly assistant chief with the Fort Worth Fire Department, I believe, and that might be where the two of your paths might have crossed.
Yeah, so you must have worked with Rudy Jackson when I was there. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, so were you there, how many years total in Fort Worth?
30 years, from 1985 to 2015.
Well, good for you, because you saw it go from what everyone referred to as Cowtown to a booming metropolis with, right before I left, and it was just because of the city investment, the leadership, and the public-private partnership, Sundance Square and that downtown was absolutely the most beautiful and the safest place. My family, we'd go there every single night or the weekend. I loved it. It was wonderful.
Yes, my hometown, born and raised there. We still try to get over, when we can and see friends and enjoy the downtown, the nightlife. I think the last time the last time you and I saw one another, but I remember you used to enjoy the Colonial too, because we would run into each other at the annual golf tournament out there.
Yeah, so I was a college golfer, so I don't get to play as much as I would like now. I still have a very dangerous short game, which is I've always had a good short game. But the reason I love Colonial is that was like the only time I could go out and see a lot of the people that made all those special events so seamless. And I could just say thank you for them working. And Colonial is such a good partner of ours in planning those incidents. And then you guys with the fire department, we were like brothers and sisters and brothers, just constantly working all these special events together. So that relationship there was magical. And the reason I'm glad to see you're in Plano, my nieces both live in Plano. So thank you for making Plano attractive and safe and clean, because they love it.
I appreciate that. And one other thing I was just going to add is that a tidbit that I didn't share with Ken the other day, but my sister is she retired in 2017 from Fort Worth Police Department after 25 years. So she worked under Chief Halstead, now in Russell.
Well, I'll tell you, she's probably leaving at a great time. Nothing wrong with the city, nothing wrong with the PD. Just nationally, it is a different environment than when we grew up in the public safety profession. My son wanted to go into law enforcement, and I'm glad he studied it aggressively and decided, I think I'm going to do something else, because it's a different arena in today's world. It's tough, but it's much, much different.
Yes,
so kudos to her. Great career. She left at a great time, as well as you. And look at the second chapter you're on. So happy to have you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, that is about the most perfect segue I could possibly imagine. When you talk about things changing, the reason we have Chief Greif here today is because he's not only the current chairman of the Terrorism and Homeland Security Committee for the IAFC, but you have been working on something really important for our fire service leadership out there, Chief. The Incident Response Workbook for Civil Unrest and Disturbance. And really the intent of that is provide guidance for fire agencies to deal with civil unrest in their community. Is that, do I have that correct?
That's absolutely correct. Yes, sir.
Well, we really appreciate you being here. I particularly do, because the two of you, Chief Halstead and yourself, you have insight into something that is I'm looking forward to learning from the two of you. I really want to hear more about the work that you were doing and hear you and Chief Halstead kind of discuss civil unrest for the fire department. I think that we've, for many of us that grew up and worked in the fire service our entire career, we didn't have to deal with civil unrest. We do live in a changing world, though, today. And just in recent memory, we've seen several instances where public safety agencies and fire departments have had to address this issue very directly.
Well, Chief Greif will know this, but the common joke around everybody in Fort Worth was the smarter people turn left at the academy, and he's going to know what that means.
Yes, sir.
And then for those of us that wanted the shorter line of employment, we turned right and we went to the police department, and left, they went to the fire department. So obviously he was smarter. He made a left.
I'm assuming you've been to the Bob Bowling Training Center that was built back in circa 2015, Jeff. Is that correct?
Oh, so there are so many gray hairs on my face because when Mayor Moncrief was there and I got my first 100 days in, I told him we will build one of the nation's largest and most advanced public safety training complexes in the United States. And he looked at me and he goes, "We're cutting 37 million out of this year's budget." He goes, "You better shut your mouth in public." And you know, Mike Moncrief, he's very direct. But we got it done. And, thank God for the fire department being partners with us. Because I will say this, I told Rudy this, I told every elected official this. If fire was not on board, I would have never gotten it done as police chief. I had to have the fire profession, their partnership, and their undying community support. Like 98% of the community loves the fire department. The other two just haven't met you yet. So y'all had it made. And when I had y'all as partners, then I was like, okay, we got a winner here. So we went to planning mode in 2010. And sadly, I retired 45 days before the ribbon cutting. So I went down there to shoot in the gun range, and I got to get a tour and everything. But tell you what, that is a beautiful facility.
It is truly an outstanding facility in every respect. When you said turn left and right, they didn't change that. It's the same way when you come in the admin building.
Well, we did that by design, you know that.
Well, Chief Halstead, it sounds like you've been to the center. You know how to get there, so directions wouldn't be necessary. But if you want, I think Chief Greif can get us back into the training center. It sounds like you took advantage of the shooting range. But if you want to go drag a little bit of hose, I think we can probably accommodate you.
Well, I tell you, that was when fire department needed their burn tower. That was my hook. So we got them a burn tower, a rescue pond, and then they got a driving track where they could do a lot of ladder driving and a lot of, training accomplishments on our facility. But getting them a fire station there was the anchor. Once we got them the brand new fire station with a new burn tower, that was ecologically satisfying for the residents, because the old one, the residents always complained. Then I knew it was a win. And then I just had to keep it in budget. And we did. It was a great thing. But that was 4 years. Got that thing done.
Well, Chief, I really appreciate you being here. As fascinating as all this is, tell us about the work that you've been doing for the International Association of Fire Chiefs. I'm fascinated.
Well, we have as I told you before, we have a really diverse committee. I'm truly the least among them. It's a who's who of members of the fire service, both past and present. And by that, I mean, we have a lot of really tenured, retired chiefs from, well, as you know, Greg Castle from Las Vegas, Clark County. We've got Chief Joe Pfeiffer from New York, really famous within the fire service, Sal Cassiano. List goes on and on and on. Some of our current members are, my vice chair of the committee is Chief Donnelly from Washington, D.C. Fire Department. So these are some chiefs that have really been there, done that, got the T-shirt during some major events that they certainly didn't ask for or want, but they, in my opinion, looking back on some of them, it was their finest hour. But one of the things that they all have in common from one another is the success of these events. And I say that in the sense these are horrific events, whether it was the insurrection of our capital or whether it was the nation's largest mass shooting in Las Vegas. But what they talk about was the cooperation that they had with law enforcement and with federal agencies, and that they all knew one another before the event occurred. and they had really strong relationships. Ironically, and when I speak to about Chief Castle in Clark County and John Donnelly in D.C., one of the things that they both will echo is that they had outstanding relationships with their mayors and their elected officials, and so it made it much easier to bring those events into some semblance of command and control and get your hands around them because they had that cooperative spirit. So one of the things that we sought to do with the committee was to kind of create a short document. It's not a Tale of Two Cities by no stretch. It's a 9-page document. It's very easy to read, but it's formatted in such a way that it gives the fire service, whether it's a small community, medium, or a large, it's all scalable depending on your size of your agency and the event. But the bedrock principles remain the same when it comes to the cooperation that you're going to need with your law enforcement agencies, again, your federal agencies, your elected officials. It's all about communication. And you don't want to, if the first time Jeff and I had a conversation was at a smoking hole, instead of having a relationship that was built on, trust and mutual respect and just everyday cooperation, that's what will lead to success when bad things happen in your community. So we really just wanted to create a document that gave fire officials, specifically the fire chiefs or those responsible for EMS and fire, something to get their hands around that would allow them to, if they don't have all these policies and procedures in place already, if they don't have plans, if they don't understand the nomenclature of suspicious activity reports, if they don't understand, we have to get out of our world of just everything surrounds the fire service and understand that it takes our partners. And frankly, when we're talking about civil unrest, the first key thing is to remember that that's the law enforcement scene, not the fire department scene. Law enforcement has to protect us before we can go do our job. So if we don't have that spirit of cooperation and working together, and we don't understand each other's lingo, we don't have a unified command, and we haven't actually practiced and drilled on hot, warm zones, cold zones, if whatever you want to call them, there's different nomenclature, but the understanding is the same. If you don't understand force protection and task force, all of these things that you need to be working together. So the document is to really spur your thought process into ensuring that you've got all these things lined out and you started working on it. And if you already have those things, then this is a validation document. It's sort of a checklist to help you ensure that, yeah, we've touched that base.
You brought up something that is, I used kind of a line both when I was Phoenix PD and then when I was Fort Worth. I always said that the tabletop relationships will drive incident command success. And I kept reminding all of the leaders on police, fire, and emergency management and elected officials and the community stakeholders, if you do not have day-to-day relationship and partnerships, when your disaster, crisis incident, or mass shooting happens, you're in big trouble because it's that day-to-day relationship, camaraderie, and that trust of one another that's going to lend extreme success on the mutual aid and the deployment of those resources. So kudos for you for having that vision and driving that. Because I've been to 40 states in the U.S. and I've tried to either as a consultant or trying to work with them. There are some regions that are completely fractured, and it's sad that they are that way. But as I have bragged to many people, North Texas, boy, that camaraderie and that partnership and that success platform is very, very rare there. But boy, is it good to work in that environment.
Chief, I'm really
Well, I remember
curious.
when
Oh, no, you go.
hired Jeff, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, sir.
I was going to say, I remember when Jeff got hired, there was, like any incoming chief, there was, like an informal reception kind of party thing for him. And it was my very first time to meet him. And I remember he said something that resonated with me because I introduced myself. I was a battalion chief at that time. And I'd read his resume and I saw where he had really on like big major events, really at Super Bowls, things of that nature. He was deep in that background and understanding that cooperative area. And I just introduced myself, said, look forward to working with you, kind of, you know, the typical thing you would say. And he said, I just want you to know that if fire and police in this city don't get along with one another, we will get along. And luckily, we already had a pretty good relationship.
You did.
Certainly, he fostered that and continued to build upon that. And that was, you know, the crux of what I was trying to say. You've got to have that check your ego at the door. Understand you need one another, but you have to reach out and get to know each other. It's critical.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that. Go ahead.
Well, it just, and I think Chief Greif and I had the good fortune to speak not all that long ago. And I think one of the things we talked about was interoperability. I think all of us have had the conversation about interoperability. We've spent, you know, millions of dollars on technology so that we can talk on each other's frequencies and share each other's for all this other stuff. But at the core of interoperability is exactly what we're talking about right now. It's relationships and face-to-face conversations. If you're unwilling to have a conversation with your partners, it doesn't matter whether or not the technology can talk to them. You have to be willing to have that conversation and engage one another.
Well, one thing I was going to add to that, and this is meant very, very productive and very proactive, is you also have to have tough conversations with your peers and your other professionals and other professions, because that strengthens the trust, the bond, and the communication relationship, and you don't have to worry until the crisis incident is there. So, you know, like in both of my careers that I went, I was so fortunate that we always had phenomenal relationships with our fire counterparts. But we did have tough conversations with them. And I remember post 9/11, we decided once a month in Phoenix, in the city of Phoenix, we would have a joint executive staff meeting. And we would hash out if there was a scene where police didn't respect fire's mission for dealing with a 2-3 alarm fire. And if, you know, fire didn't respect police's crime scene post on the triple homicide, we would work these things out so that the relationships were strengthened. And I think those tough conversations were beneficial instead of just never addressing it and letting it fester. That you can't let that happen.
Well, and Chief Greif, I would imagine that that's a big part of the reason why the IAFC took this up, was to basically create that the door for fire service leadership to be able to walk through and start having these conversations. Am I correct?
That is correct. And I want to say, I was telling about some of our committee members, but what I left out is our committee is not just made up of fire service professionals. We bring LE into it. And I've been blessed that I had a longtime member of the FBI, Chris Combs, who was the special agent in charge out of San Antonio. After he retired, we've continued to have the presence, not as strong because Chris, I think deep down, he's one of those that wished he'd have turned left when he was a young man. So he was all in on being a part of our group and our committee meetings. But then I was fortunate enough to get Chad Yarborough came into the Dallas area. And well, before him, it was Zach DeSarno. And we had a great relationship. And then we got Chad on the committee. And this year, for example, the IFC would just happen to, by coincidence, be in Dallas, our national conference this year. He came in and briefed the board and then come back a few days later and participated with our committee. And then broke the news to us that he was being promoted to assistant director of FBI and headed back to DC. But to his credit, he said, I'm not going to leave you hanging. I'll be sure to engage you with someone. And he's already selected someone to be on the committee. And I actually have a call between him, myself, and one of the key members of the IFC Monday afternoon, as a matter of fact, to establish that relationship and to keep it going. Because if we don't have the law enforcement lens on the committee with us, we'll get this myopic viewpoint of what we think the fire service or PD needs from us and vice versa. If you don't have that law enforcement, background coming into the conversation, you're going to leave something out. So we think it's really important. And we do have some members of our committee that obviously through their fire service careers at one point, maybe they were in arson investigation, they become, which a lot of times it's common to become a peace officer in addition to your fire credentials. So we have a pretty broad mix, and we understand that, the fire department needs a role in the fusion centers, and that you have to have that back and forth. And going back to, Fort Worth and their commitment, Chief Davis, the fire chief there in Fort Worth, he is committed one of his stellar captains to be in the Fusion Center in Dallas, and he's been there for well over a year and going in his second year now. But that's that commitment level of you have to be like this. And you know, King, you said something earlier about you can spend millions of dollars, and unfortunately, when we do have these big major events and they do the after action time and time again, you'll hear the number one issue is lack of communication. And you just can't help but scratch your head and go, how the heck does that happen in this day and age? But for me, I always call it meeting at the flagpole. I don't care where the unified command is. It does no good if the fire department rolls up in their $1.1 million command vehicle and PD rolls up in their $1.5 million command vehicle, and they park 50 yards apart from one another, but they never come talk face to face. You know, in time again, unfortunately, that's still happening today. And so I think a lot of the crux of what we're encouraging is build those personal relationships. Jeff's example of a command team meeting and actually, you know, being able, I mean, just having conversations. And there's times when me and my, you know, I met with my police chief, as I shared with you, once a month for lunch, as soon as I got to Plano. And a lot of times we're just talking about whatever. It could be the weather, it could be sports, because there's really nothing going on, but we're just building and fostering that relationship. But when you have that comfort level, then when something happens, like a paramedic decides to cut the clothes off by going right through the bullet hole of the shirt, or the officer parks right in the middle of the street and leaves his squad car and busts out all the windows, you can have those. And I know you guys are chuckling because these are those back and forth.
We've done it. We did it.
and we've cut right through bullet holes or walked right through the blood, or, you know, completely were oblivious to the crime scene. And so, but when you have those repeated friendships and relationships, then those crucial conversations that he mentioned become much easier when you have that familiar relationship with one another.
Well, Chief, I know as a former fire chief and continue working with the Western Fire Chiefs Association, we continue to look to the IAFC for leadership. Where can our listeners go to review the document and get the information that you're sharing with us today?
They can go to the International Association of Fire Chiefs website. And then I know for sure if you navigate, you know, there's the drop downs, you can navigate because all the committees and sections are there. If you go to the Terrorism and Homeland Security, that's where the document will be located at, and it's a PDF, can be downloaded. And again, you know, we're trying to get the word out. We're spreading it. We really are so appreciative of the traction you've already given us between the podcast you and I did a while back and now today. And then we're trying to spread the word through all the IFC section leaders throughout the nation so that it can get on the blogs and we can just keep it going. And it's going to be, it's like anything else. It's not a one and done document. I mean, as our society changes, there'll be iterations to this document. I mean, I try to be an optimistic person, but candidly, when I look around at everything that's happening right now in the Middle East, with an election coming up that we know is going to be hotly contested in a very polarized nation, there's a lot of, you know, let's just say tender, dry grass out there waiting for a spark. And, you know, it's now, I think, more imperative than ever that people be prepared and that we understand our roles and obligations in public safety. And we all have to work together to try to prevent and then respond. If prevention doesn't work, then we have to be prepared and we have to respond.
Yeah, we're going to share that website with us both on our social pages as well as our company page. One thing that is extremely impressive is this is all extra work for you. You know, so people don't understand the leadership demand your current position has. And then in addition to that, you're serving in this capacity and generating thought leadership articles and national best practices and full on support for those still serving today. So how do you balance all of that into a wellness capacity? That's tough.
Well, you do what I'm doing right now. You take a vacation. But I think I've been very blessed. The gentleman that hired me into Plano was Bruce Glasscock, who had been the police chief of Plano. He was actually at one time the president of the IACP, very active in the community. He hired me in. It was under him that I got on the terrorism and homeland security, which you can't do those roles, Jeff, as you know, when you start doing these extracurricular outside your normal job, if your city administration doesn't support it. So he was all in on it. And then when my current city manager, Mark Ithelson, was in the position that I'm in, he was over the public safety teams when he was the deputy city manager. And when he elevated me up to the position I'm in today, I asked him, do I need to step down? And he said, absolutely not. We want you engaged. We want you out there because it's all one big team at the end of the day. And so I'm allowed to do what I've been doing so far because of the generosity, for lack of a better term, of my city management and understanding the importance of public safety. And, my police chief, Ed Drain, and I we're not only just good friends, we're neighbors. We live candy corner across the street from one another. We've been, thicker than thieves, so to speak, for quite some time now. I will be joining him later this month at the IACP so that I can learn more about what his role is and what his needs are and how can I better support him. So I think you just, you find the time. There's no saying if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person. And, I kind of thrive on being busy and doing stuff all the time. So it doesn't, it's a labor of love, is just what I'm trying to say. But I'm blessed that I'm being supported by my city leadership, my mayor, my city manager. They're very supportive in the role that I'm playing and encouraging me to stay in the role. And kudos to the IFC because they could have said, all right, you're not an active fire chief anymore, someone else. And they're like, no, we want to keep you. If you're willing to serve, we're going to keep you in that chair position for another term.
Well, when you and Chief Drain come up to Boston for ICP, I'll be at booth 1966. So stop by
excellent.
and see me. I'm at the Genesis booth at 1966. I'm there every day, all day. I would love to grab lunch, coffee, after dinner, anything you guys want. I would just enjoy the conversation, walk you around and show you some cool stuff.
Absolutely. And that's kind of, I've been in this role coming up on 3 years now, and I'm trying to learn everything I can. There's 6 departments that are in my umbrella, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can about all of them outside of just the fire service. I've ridden out with PD. I mean, I'm just really trying to get better and more in tune, again, what their needs are so that I can help bridge those gaps. But, I really appreciate the fact that as a nation, I think we're getting better. When we talk about incident command, we've been talking about it for years, but we're getting better and better. I mean, the joke is that, the fire department, does it and PD don't, but that's absolutely not true. I mean, I have found both in both of my departments that PD has a really good, strong grasp of incident command. They understand it. They have to apply it a little bit differently because obviously, we joke, but the fire service, we don't go anywhere without it. We're a team. It's a pure team sport and everything we do. But in the police department, it's a lot of, you're out there by your lonesome and you have that scene and have to deal with it until other folks start coming in. And they don't have that luxury of always having plenty of people there with them. And so they have to, the way they build out their structure is a little different, and we've had to learn that as time goes by. But I think just the repetitive practicing, and I encourage everyone, if they're listening, PD, fire, either side, if y'all aren't getting together, I mean, we do some pretty extensive drills, and it comes at an expense. But we do, every other year we do a major live drill where we'll get a movie theater and we'll get drama students from the College and moulage them up. And we have to do this where we go in and do force protection where, you got 2 officers taking you into the warm zone, 2 that have your back, and the 4 firefighters stuck in the middle for extraction to get people out as quick as can to try to save them. We do stop the bleed teaching. There's just a lot of actual practice. And by doing that, those street officers, those street firefighters, they're building their relationships and friendships. And I think it comes down to, I'm a broken record when I keep saying relationships, but I think that is so key in understanding each other's job and understanding who's the got to be the lead in which situation, and that, you know, how we protect one another. But fire as a weapon is becoming, unfortunately, more and more of an opportunity for the bad guys. And obviously, we've got the water and the expertise and how to put it out. But if we don't have the protection, you know, it doesn't do us any good to show up with all the water in the world. So, you know, again, it's just that synergy that you get when you work together. And that's what this document is really all about, is just the emphasis on building relationships, partnerships, and getting your SOPs and your training and your things lined out in such a way that we're there to support each other. Because at the end of the day, we're all trying to accomplish the same thing, and that's protecting our communities.
Well, it's incredibly important stuff, and I'll echo what Chief Halstead said. I truly appreciate your commitment to the industry and to keeping our personnel safe. As a reminder for everybody, the International Association of Fire Chiefs Terrorism and Homeland Security Committee has created a document. It is a guide called the Fire Service Quick Incident Response Workbook for Civil Unrest and Disturbance. Go to their website to get a copy of it, and start the conversations as quickly as you can, because every moment you waste is an opportunity missed. So, Chief Halstead, did you
we got
have
a fun question for you, Chief. So we always end this with a nice, fun, personal question. And the question we're going to ask you is, we're going to go back to your career in Fort Worth. So what was your best assignment you had in that career, and why?
Oh, wow. That's a tough one, because I always felt like, you know, bloom where you're planted, and wherever I wound up, I tried to do the best job I could. But I would probably say but the funnest one I had was battalion chief, because I grew up in Battalion 4, which was the East Side Stop 6 area, and probably
Oh boy, yeah.
And
Here,
so
here.
from rookie firefighter to captain, I was always assigned to Battalion 4, and the overwhelming majority of that time to fire station number 24, which happened to be the chief's headquarters. So fast forward, I get to go back toward the end of my career before I made it. My last 4 years, I was assistant chief. So, you know, I guess it was about 6 years prior to my retiring. I got to go back to Battalion 4 and walk in the door as the chief of a battalion. And I had 7 stations full of just great firefighters. And I joke, but I had a Suburban, an unlimited supply of gasoline, and some really good cooks in all the stations. And it's a very busy battalion, but the busier you are, the tighter the camaraderie amongst the team. And so that opportunity to go back and work the traditional firefighter schedule of 24 on, 48 off, and be with my brothers and sisters, and be in a battalion that I grew up in, and get to lead that battalion, that was probably my funnest assignment.
Okay, though, come on now. I have to ask, what shift? A shift, B shift, or C shift? A shift. Excellent.
A shift.
Love it. Love it.
See, you just described another reason why people should turn left.
I love it.
You just described another reason.
If you know, you know.
Food, free gas, a Suburban? Are you kidding me?
If you know, you know.
You do. Thank you so much,
I had
Chief.
a big battalion. Thank you guys again. Appreciate the opportunity to spread the word about this, to get the exposure out, and just to really stress the opportunity to come together and remember we're all on the same team at the end of the day. Jeff, I'm looking forward to seeing you there in a few weeks, my friend.
I can't wait. I'll see you in booth 1966. I'd love to get lunch or dinner with you guys.
Absolutely.
All right, my friend.
Thank
Be
you, Chief.
safe. Enjoy your vacation.
Likewise. Take care, gentlemen. Be safe.
Okay.
Bye-bye.